Hi, I'm Erica from the Alameda String Academy, and we are going to start a series of tutorials, 4 tutorials to be exact, on Gavotte by Gavotte from Suzuki book number 1. Now, the first tutorial, this tutorial is going to talk about just the first 2 lines, measures 1 through measure 8. This is the section that really establishes the energy of the piece, and we can talk about some new little markings that we haven't yet seen in the Suzuki book, namely the teeny tiny note right before beat 2 in the second measure. And this is what's called an appoggiatura, also sometimes kind of known as a grace note. In some contexts, they can mean different things, but for our purposes here, they really mean the same thing. It's a short note that comes right before a beat. So it's going to sound a little bit like this. Okay, so it happens right before the second beat, so I'll play you the whole measure. Okay, and if this was Mozart, then we might play it on the beat. But this one is typically played before the beat, so with the G really landing strong on the second measure. Okay, and you'll really start to hear what I mean when you play this with the accompaniment or when you play it with a metronome. So that covers the appoggiatura, or the grace note, and let's look at the next one at the end of the line. This is in measure 4. Okay, this one is from the second finger, our high 2, the C sharp, to the third finger. And with any of these appoggiaturas, we're going to make sure that both of the fingers that we need for the figure are ready to go and right above the string, because they happen so quickly. And you've got actually 4 chances to practice this in this opening part. It's actually one of the things that really makes this Gavotte, stand out and be unique. It's kind of part of the personality of this piece, so you can have a little fun with it. Now, there's another new skill here in this piece, and that is the high 3rd finger on the G string. And this brings out the C sharp. Now, we have had C sharp before, but not on the G string. And the C sharp, so if we just look at the one on the A string, it's the second finger, it's a high 2. It's going to be, it's a whole step from your B. So we played A, B, C. We're going to end up with 2 whole steps, a whole step from the A to the B, and a whole step from the B to the C sharp. Now, if we did that same thing, and we followed the distances of the steps, starting on the A on the G string, when we really want to use our ear here to match what we just played, A, B, C, to what we might play on the G string an octave down, we're going to see our 3rd finger need to land in a different place than it normally has with the finger pattern of, like, the typical 3rd finger pattern that we've experienced so far on the strings. And so let's spell out our 2 whole steps from the A to the B and the B to the C sharp. See, here you can see my 1st finger, whole step to the B, and then we're going to do a whole step to the C sharp, which means I'm actually going to place it instead of snuggled up next to my 2nd finger, I'm going to put it a whole step higher. And so now, instead of, we normally play it here, It's really quite high. In fact, now it's going to be a whole step to a half step distance to my fourth finger, what I would normally play as my fourth finger there. So, and to make matters even more complicated, we're adding this extra distance between our second and third finger on the string that is already a little bit farther away for our fingers to kind of manage getting there. So we really want to practice thinking about using our elbow to get our hand over to the G string so that we have plenty of room to open up the space between our fingers to play those two half steps. Now, as with any kind of elbow swingy type of thing, we want to make sure that we're not swinging and kind of turning our body inward when we play, because that's just going to make things feel even more squishy. So I like to think of opening up, keeping my shoulders nice and broad and open. And if I need more room, if I start to feel squishy, then I let my arm kind of come out a little bit more, and you'll see that I have more room to swing. And as I swing, my fingers are just along for the ride. So if I was to build that same hand shape on, say, the A string, like that, oh, that's a D sharp, that's a high 3. Okay, if I do that same thing, I'm going to lift up my fingers and I'm going to swing my hand over so that my elbow over so that now my fingers are over the D string. It's going to sound like this. Same finger pattern, all whole steps. Ooh, now I just played a G sharp on my D string with that high 3. Okay, now I'm going to lift up my fingers, hovering over the string, keeping my same rainbow shape, and then I'm going to go just a little bit more, keeping my arm open and the scroll of my violin up nice and high so that it's not really moving. I'm rotating around the violin. And there's my C sharp. Now, there is another way to play C sharp, okay? And that is with the fourth finger. And I will show you that in a second, but let's see if we can put that high 3 on the G into the music that we have written here. So we're going to start on measure 7, and we are going to play measure 7 and measure 8, nice and slow. Okay, so I might practice this by just picking out the notes that I need, maybe not bouncing back and forth so much, but I might say, okay, the notes in that measure are B, G, E, C sharp, D, and that's it. And then I might just play those notes in whatever combinations I want. But what's neat about this is I can really see my third finger moving from its typical spot on when I play it the G on the D string, and then I play my 1, and then I'm gonna rotate over and open up my hand and reach it a half step higher for that C sharp. I can really feel the space open up there, and I have a good idea of how far I need to go. Now, some of us, we all have different size hands. So it's important to know that what might work for one person might not work for another, and that's okay. So if it's just like you're working on it and you're like, man, you know what, I feel like I'm going to hurt my hand because that is just too far of a stretch for me, then that's fine. We can gently keep trying. But you can also say, there is another finger that can land in that same spot, and that's your fourth finger. Okay, so we could just place that right next to what would be our normal 3, our C natural. So instead of stretching that third finger up, we can just put our fourth finger in its place instead. And it kind of feels like a closer 4 than what you would play for a D natural, because we're playing a half step lower for the C sharp. So that one would look like this from measure 7. Okay, so you have some options there. Now, excuse me, I hope that once you have kind of gotten your head wrapped around the different finger patterns that you have in this opening section, that you'll go ahead and play with me with the piano, playing this part and hear how it fits in. Make sure that you keep in mind that in all of the rest that we have, you're going to do a retake, okay? So that means we want to start from the same part in the bow each time on a down bow. And then we'll retake. Retake again, etc., etc. This happens a lot. It's just part of the personality of this piece, and we'll just kind of put that in our muscle memory as we practice the song. So we'll see you in the playthrough and in the next 3 tutorials on Gavotte.